just kind of remind us a couple things. We will need to know which form of the equation we're going to be using, whether it's the horizontal or the vertical axis. We're going to be able to tell that because of where A is, if A is under X, and A being the bigger of the two distances, so that's that major length. If A is under X, then it's the horizontal one. If A is under Y, then it's the vertical one. If you notice kind of what we need to be able to know in order to write the equation, we're going to need to know what H and K are, and we're going to need to know what A and B are, and then also, again, which orientation it is. So there's going to be 5 questions we need to be able to answer in order to write the equation. So let's go ahead and look at what that's going to be like. So they're telling us the direction for this axis. They're saying that's vertical. Well, the axes are always perpendicular, so if the minor axis goes up and down, then the major axis must go side to side. So this is a horizontal equation, actually, but we can find b from that. So remember that the minor axis is the length of 2b. So if the whole minor axis is 8 long, well, 2 times 4 is 8. So again, the minor axis is the whole way across. We're just looking for kind of the radius to the the diameter. So the radius would just be 4 in this case, or the b value is just 4. Like a graph like this, see how the x-intercepts represent certain information and the y-intercepts represent something else. So we actually get a pretty good idea right after what we finished on Tuesday with the last graph of the ellipse. Today Alright, Nola woke up with a fever this morning, so I had to kind of scramble to make some videos so we can finish the lesson from Tuesday. And then we have the last lesson for this chapter today also, so going to be a lot going on. I'll post multiple videos to get you through each of the parts of that. But here we are looking at writing the equations for the ellipses. I'm going to go back to the equations real quick too. Alright, so what I'm noticing here is they're telling me the x and y intercepts for this ellipse. First thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and write out the questions that I have. So I want to know what the direction is, so I know which equation to use. I want to know what h is, I want to know what k is, and I want to know what a is, and I want to know what b is. So with the parabolas we had 4 questions that we had to be able to answer. With the ellipses we have 5 questions we need to be able to answer them. So as I look at what they give me, they're giving me intercepts. H and k deal with the center, a and b are distances from the center to certain points. So they're not really saying anything here specific about any of these values right now. So I'm going to go ahead and try and sketch this out and see if that helps me, since the information they're giving me isn't directly helping me. So quick sketch. And then go ahead and plot some of this information they're giving me. So they tell me the x-intercepts are at -4 and 4. So that means that's where the graph is crossing the x-axis. And then the y-intercepts are at 2 and -2. So I'll plot those 4 points. And this should look pretty familiar from one of the graphs that we did the other day. Graph would look like it's probably going to, an ellipse that's going to curve around like this. Something like that. So kind of have an idea what this looks like, and then from that we should be able to tell where the center of this ellipse is. We can definitely see that it's there at 0, 0. We can also tell that this is a it's longer in the horizontal direction, so this is a horizontal major axis. And now that we know where the center is, we can also figure out what a and b are. So a being the longer of the two distances, so that's a distance of 4, and then b being the shorter of the two distances, so here we see that's a distance of 2, so b is 2. So there, the picture actually helped us figure out all that information. So the horizontal equation was x minus h squared over something plus y minus k squared over something equals 1. And since it's horizontal, that's going to be a is under x, and then that means b is under y. So I'm just going to fill in all those values. So I get x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared. So that's h and k. Found out that a was 4, so 4 squared under x, and then b was 2, so b squared, 2 squared under y. Oops, I forgot to write equals 1. So as we simplify that, that'll just be x squared over 4 squared, which is 16, plus y minus 0, so y squared over 2 squared, which is 4, equals 1. Always equal to 1. So there's the equation for that first graph, or first set of constraints. Let's go on to try a different one. So let's see. Tell me where the vertices are, and so that's good information. We want to know where the vertices are. That deals with our a value. But we still know where the direction is. We know what h is, what k is. So h and k deal with the center. Not telling me that. We know that the vertices deal with the a value, so we know we're going to have some information dealing with a here. And they don't say anything about b. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this out again, just to kind of get a feel for it. So I think that visualness really will help a lot of you guys. So I suggest you guys do this for yourself. So those vertices being at 6 and negative 6. So since those are the vertices, we should be able to find the center should be halfway between those two things. And so right in the middle of those would be the center, which would be at 0, 0 again. Now that we know where the vertices are and where the center is, we should be able to figure out what a is. A is that distance, so a would be 6. We also know since those are the vertices that s and they're on the x-axis that this must be a horizontal ellipse, longer horizontally than it is vertically. So the only thing we don't know is b. So they have given us this c value, this distance to the foci. So remember what that means. Not that you need to plot these points, but from the center towards those vertices, you would move 4. So those foci would be there. But what we really need is that equation, that c squared equals a squared minus b squared. And then since we know c and a, we can figure out what b is. So 4 squared equals 6 squared minus b squared. So 16 equals 36 minus b squared. So we're going to switch the 16 and the b squared around, so that would be b squared equals 36 minus 16. So b squared is 20. So that means b is the square root of 20. Now the other day we did a problem like this and we simplified or reduced that radical down and then found out later that we kind of wasted our time doing that. So if we just leave it in this form here, we'll be good enough to go. So again, horizontal, so that's going to be x minus 0, so that's h squared over something, y minus k, which is 0 squared over something, equals 1. And since it's horizontal, a is going to go under x, so 6 squared, and then b would go under y. So the square root of 20 squared. And then x minus 0, of course, is just x, and that'd be squared. And 36 plus y minus 0, which is y squared. And the square root of 20 squared is just 20. So we see how that not reducing that radical actually made things easy. And then there's our equation. always equal to 1. Okay, going to look at another one. And so write up my questions. Here they're telling me the center is at 3, -2. The A is 5. And C is 3. And then it has a major axis that's vertical. So they're actually giving me a lot of information here. First question we need to know is what the direction is, and well, we want to know which direction the major axis is going. So they are telling us that it's vertical. So that means my A value will be under Y, not X. Speaking of A values, they give us that. It's 5, and we know that A is the distance from the center. Well, the center is at 3, -2, so that means H is 3, and K is -2. So it just leaves us with B that we need to find. And actually don't need to graph that because, well, they give us A and C. That means we can find B using that formula. So C squared equals A squared minus B squared. So 3 squared would be 9. A squared, which is 5, so 25 minus B squared. Again, it's going to switch B and 9 around, so B squared equals 25 minus 9, which is 16. So that means B is 4. So going to plug in values. So x minus 3 for h over something plus y minus -2, which would be plus 2 squared over something that's going to equal 1. Now, because this is vertical, that means that our A value will end up under Y. So that means that A squared, which would be 25, go under Y. And that means that B is going to go under X. So 4 squared, which is 16. So there is our equation for this. Ellipse. All right, one more of these, and we'll be done with this section, this day. So here, this one's pretty similar. They give us the center to start off with, so that's nice. Answer 2 of those questions for us. Tells us the vertical minor axis with a length of 8, and then C is 3, so H, K, A, and B. So starting off with that information they give us about the center. So 5 and 2. Now the directions, this is the minor axis they're talking about now. So flipping back real quick. That we need to use. So we know that. Now they also tell us the length of the minor axis is 8. Well, that doesn't tell us B. So that means B equals 4. So last thing we need to know is what A is. They don't tell us A, but they do tell us B and C. So use that equation again. So C squared equals A squared minus B squared. So 3 squared is 9 equals A, which I don't know, squared minus 16, 4 squared. Add 16 to both sides. So A squared equals 25. And so A must be 5. All right. So now we know everything that we need to know. So x minus h squared over something plus y minus a. I was going to go ahead and plug in the number, but I didn't. So h being 5, and then over y minus something squared, and then k being 2. Now this is a horizontal equation, so that means that a is under x. So a being 5, so 25 will go under x, and then b will be under y, so 16 here, and I forgot to write equals 1. Alright, so there's how you write the equation for an ellipse given certain criteria. Yesterday, when I did some other classes at this point, I gave them time to work on these 4 problems that I didn't assign the other day. While I came around and checked homework. Obviously, you can't check your homework, but if you want to work on those problems right there, or just go on to the next video about hyperbola, which would be 6.2 day 2. I'll see you there.